the District Advisory Committee for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. We are meeting tonight, Wednesday, September 11th on Zoom and in person at the Aquatic Center. I'll start out with folks who couldn't join us tonight. Our Board of Directors liaison, Director Paul Savas could not be here tonight. He's with an ill family member. Wish them well. And Mark Elliott, our Vice Chair, could not be here tonight. He has an excused absence. He's out of town. And with that, I'll introduce myself. My name is Jeanette DeCastro. I'm serving as a DAC representative for Sub Area 3 and also Chair. And I'll pass it to my left.
Sheila Shaw, representative from Sub Area 3.
Thank you.
Grove Warnefeld, representative from Sub-Area 1.
Damon Deal representing Sub-Area 4.
Joel Bergman, representing community centers.
Lisa Beatty, representing City of Milwaukee, Sub Area 5.
Anita, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Anita Blackmar, Sub Area 2.
You're up, Ally.
Where is Allie?
I know.
Look at
I know. Where's Allie?
I wish I was here. I'm Allie. I'm in Sub Area 5.
Dominic Cortinas, Deputy Director, NCPRD.
Kia Selly, District Director, NCPRD.
Thank you. And did you get to introduce yourself? You did, great, okay, thank you. So that will take us into our agenda item 2, which is approval of the DAC meeting summary from August 14th, 2024. And I see your hand up, Grover, so I'll invite you to talk about the wording clarification we're asking for.
Sure, I just was working for consistency and on the topic of the Milwaukee Community Center Advisory Board, it is listed not appropriately or not consistently under Joel's reference in who attended. And then it's not listed appropriately in the comment that Mark made on item 5D of the agenda. And if we could bring those both into alignment with the Milwaukee, whatever it's called.
MCCAB,
That's it.
Milwaukee Community Center Advisory Board.
That's it. So if we can make that change, that would bring it into alignment.
Okay.
We can get that done.
That's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your help with the alphabet soup and keeping that in line. I'm going to add an action item as chair. I want to propose an agenda change. And my proposal is to delete item 4 for subcommittee reports. And add in that time slot a resolution for the DAC to consider that was brought to me by Mark Elliott. So I'll be delivering it in his place.
Okay, on the minutes.
On the minutes, I'm sorry, going back to
Going
the
back to
minutes.
the minutes, they had the wrong date on them. They had an
Oh, yeah.
April date on them,
April 10th.
so they just wanted.
That's
that.
good.
Get
That's
that
good.
correct.
That's a pretty good catch too. Time machine.
Thank you. And I read through that. So any other comments on the minutes from last month, August?
Move to accept.
Okay. Any abstentions or objections? Nope. We will call that approved as amended. Thank you for those corrections. And I'm sorry, going back to the proposed agenda change. So I'm bringing that forward. Are there any objections or concerns about that change? Okay. Thank you. So I will substitute subcommittee reports for a resolution proposal. And with that, we will go into our discussion agenda. And that starts with a presentation on the system plan update by Design Workshop. I'll ask you to come forward and please introduce yourselves. Thank you. We're so glad you're here. We were chit-chatting earlier that it's nice to see you not on Zoom, right? So nice. Thanks for having us. All right.
That's not
Great.
Yeah.
There we go.
Hi there, I'm Anna Laybourne, Design Workshop,
Yeah, I'm Sharjah listed by workshop. Yeah.
and we also have some of all of those on our team on the call here from ETM and Associates, Tim and Desiree. And they're going to be presenting towards the end of this on the program analysis as well as operations and maintenance. But we're really excited to be here tonight, partly because we're about the halfway point. So we're almost there for the halfway point through this process and pulling together what is an update on an engagement to date, as well as the analysis, some other steps beyond what we shared with you the last time we were here. So completion of phases 1 and 2 is nearly there, and we've got some exciting stuff to share with you all. We'll share screen here, just one moment, and kind of cover what's on our agenda today. A couple of different things hit on, but I want to share sort of the start of these great photographs of all the engagement that's been underway in so many different forms and in ways of connecting with the community. It's been a great way to have so many people out really building relationships in the community and understanding values and interests and building more awareness of what you have for offerings. It's a really special part of the park system planning is you really get to connect with those that are in your recreation programs and are out enjoying events and activities that you get to speak with them. So a couple of things we're going to cover, some updates to the Parks and Recreation analysis we've been completing, looking at some of the final things for the community needs and gap analysis. We'll give you some updates about the engagement that's occurred recently, as well as what we've been hearing from some of the community and feedback, some initial takeaways. There'll be far more detailed reporting later, but we wanted to start off with just some highlights to what your interest, reading some more later. And then, as I mentioned, Tim and Desiree are going to jump in on the program analysis and operations and maintenance analysis, and then we'll talk about what's up next. Just a reminder what the halfway mark looks like of all the things we've gone through to date, and what's ahead for steps 3 and 4. Anticipated to wrap up in about May with the final adoption of a plan. So we still have a ways to go. I want to share, we're not at a space right now where we're going to come with, what's the next thing? What's the big projects or what's the analysis telling us yet about the recommendations? I really want to pause this and to let you know, this is really about those initial findings, but they're not actions to take forward. They're not our recommendations. That will happen in phases 3 and 4. It's really tempting to try and read into it all, put it all together, but we really do wait until all the inputs are in and then we synthesize it together. So these are just some reminders, some of the inputs. Last time we shared with you all the condition assessment and what that was looking like, much of the benchmarking analysis we shared with you last time. Now we're working on some of the community needs from the survey effort, as well as the operations and maintenance assessment to help to get this piece together to later be looking at goals, strategies, and priorities when we enter phases 3 and 4 of the work. Next round. Okay, reminder, this is the NCPRD parks inventory of all the parklands you have and operate, the trails and greenways. We've got a total number of properties and acres that are helpful in us telling part of the story of what your current offerings are. And so you'll see some of this coming into the analysis in some future slides.
Can I just ask, I thought the footnote, I didn't know, does the NCPRD own the golf course? This footnote, this.
Does not include Eagle Landing Golf Course. It does not include that.
Well, I mean, why would we even call that out? It doesn't include Mount Talbot.
Technically, we do own the property.
Oh,
We just
okay.
don't operate and
Operate.
maintain the property.
Okay, okay, I did not know that. And then,
Yeah,
I thought I thought there was something about this list didn't include undeveloped properties, is that right?
There's 12 undeveloped properties.
Sorry.
And I was
missed that.
supposed to mention that the staff asked that we mentioned like keeping questions till the end.
Yeah.
So you reminded me. You said no. Instructions, I haven't given them yet, but we're there now. Anyway, so take notes for those things, because we do want to get back to them and visit that if you have questions about it. But the total here we're listing with the undeveloped, we're just not including it when we look at level of service, because they're not part of your service provision yet. Okay. So we were asked at our last meeting with you all, if the DAC asked if we would take the sub areas of your DAC and break out the number of properties and acres per each sub area. We've done that, so you have those totals. We just would advise, this isn't how we would calculate this for level of service and looking at, because the walk distance is really that part about access. When you look at this, you can see there are many large properties, like North Clackamas Park, that are right on the border of multiple districts. So they are serving people across those boundaries. It's why we do a system plan and look more holistically instead of looking at sub areas. But we wanted to provide this since this was requested. This information. Okay, so you remember last time we shared with you the 10-minute walk idea of what does that look like for distances and what a half mile for someone to travel from each park. So this was those areas in light green that cover that area. And now we have an update to that gap analysis that includes looking at non-NCPRD public parks. So when we overlaid that, there were 34 that we've added to this, and that like light yellow shade, which doesn't show up great on the screen, but they're there. Once we overlaid those, that fills in a lot more of that walk gap. We also looked to those properties that are on your edges that are managed by others, but likely your district residents benefit from traveling to those in their neighborhood and have them in walking distance. So that's what that now helps to complete a little bit more of that picture of how different gaps are met. And in fact, in calculating this, you can go to the next one here. We lay over the residences in that different shades of red, depending on their density. Look at what households are not served. You might remember that when we looked at the NCPRD properties, 47% of your residences were served, or your housing units were served with NCPRD watershed area, 47%. Now with the non-NCPRD properties added to this, it goes up to 60%. That's a good number, but it's not like a lot of communities are shooting for upwards of 80 to 90% are their goals for watershed being provided to their residences within their boundaries. So it certainly improves it. But there's still some gaps that remain, as you can see in this exhibit. Okay, so that helps us figure out a little bit more about the watershed and where we're going with this direction about at least that part of level of service of the walking distance to parks. Now I'm going to transition and talk about the public engagement today. What else are we hearing from the community? So a lot of numbers here, and it's because your staff, volunteers, the youth advisory committee, others, some of you did so many different ways of getting the word out and encouraging people to participate in the survey. I have to say, in comparison to other communities we work with, not all this effort goes into so much advertisement and targeted, strategic about who you're trying to reach and how you'll engage them, and also how you'll build relationships going forward. So really, all of those folks should be commended. I don't always see youth advisory committees and youth getting so involved in this that they really should be acknowledged for their efforts in doing this, as well as your staff just going above and beyond to make sure they were at so many different events and use so many different channels of communication to get the word out. So this response rate of 282 random sample surveys is within the range of what we look for a statistically valid survey. It's not a huge response rate, but it is enough to get there. And mail surveys are tough to get responses from sometimes, but we can certainly rely on these numbers. The 2,262 open participant surveys is excellent. That really helps boost that view of making sure we're hearing from community members. The difference between the two is that a random sample survey that's mailed, that one is ensuring that you're getting representation throughout your district. People who don't use your parks and recreation programs are included in that. It covers all geographies, all demographics that represent your community is the goal of using that one. So it's a best practice for survey reporting. The other number is that 2,000 from the open participation survey is ensuring you're hearing from those that do use your system regularly, partly because of the way you targeted outreach as well, of going to places where they're at and when they come to your programs, advertising to them. So we are getting more of those frequent users in that understanding. And we've gone through in this report, we'll go into detail about where there might have been differences in the responses to the two different ones. They are so aligned in what we're seeing from responses. It's kind of what you would expect from non-users and users, but their values are really similar between the two different methods. To the point where the priorities line up as if it was the same survey. Just a few percentage points difference and a few items where you certainly see that, yes, those that are not using your system probably have some different things in mind than those that do. So both methods are really useful. What we're going to be sharing tonight is the results of the random sample survey, but I want to give you that confidence that they are really similar. And that's what we would expect from a random sample survey, that once you get past that threshold of the percentage rate that you're looking for response, then you can be pretty confident that it's going to align with values overall of your community. So that's what we'll be sharing tonight for the results. But when you get the full survey report, it will break out the two different responses in it, as well as many other responses based on demographics, geography, so on. We benchmarked this against some of the other studies that have been surveys that have been done for the other benchmark communities. Some of them 2018 through 2022, they had conducted surveys, and your response rate you can see here, really significant and helpful to this, higher than all the other efforts. So that also builds our confidence that you're using a really valid system. We also, the group we're working with, Polco, they do these surveys all over the country. It's what they do. So that also builds our confidence in their methodology they're using. This is just representing that we heard from representatives of all the demographics we were targeting to say, is this representative of your community? In addition, the random sample survey is weighted towards different demographics to make sure that we are having representation that is comparable to your community and is looking at those results. So that's all this one is saying, is we looked at that carefully, and we're thoughtful about that with especially the open participation survey of advertising to make sure we're hearing from people from all the different geographies and demographic groups. I'll also add at the end, we did some youth engagement that we'll share with you as well that helps to fill in that other age group understanding their needs. So this is intended just to be a summary here, some of the key takeaways, and there'll be far more data to share with you later. But some highlights of this is most residents use NCPRD's park system regularly. We asked a question about how frequently, and on the scale of things, you were certainly towards the more regular use. 43% of respondents indicated they visit your park system at least once a week. Around 7 in 10 respondents perceive the existing conditions of larger parks are excellent or good, while around 6 in 10 positively evaluate the condition of smaller parks, community and recreation facilities, natural areas, and trails. So still really good, but not as high as how they view the larger facilities. The top 3 barriers, which we gave a lot of options, it was really interesting to dig into and understand, but just the top 3 things that prevented people from using your parks or facilities. They said not knowing about parks, programs, or events, about 36% said that. Extremely common. I don't know of a park system plan I've worked on where people didn't say that was the main thing that prevented them. Yeah. But what we look for is, did they say things like safety concerns, or do they say things like it's overcapacity or something like that? And the top things were weather constraints and hours aren't convenient, and not really high percentages of that, but still something to kind of dig into and understand what that means for people. This was just helpful to make sure we were hearing from people that go to all your different parks and recreation facilities. And also that, and this is from the random sample survey, of course, this isn't just from the survey that was heavily advertised here at the pool. But not surprising, North Clackamas Aquatic Park, #1 of destinations for people that they go to most often. Milwaukee Bay Park and North Clackamas Park and Trolley Trail. So just interesting to see partly that we've got, respondents that throughout all of them, but some of them are far more frequent than others. This question about the most common ways they use the parks and recreation system aligns with what you might have remembered from our recreation trends report as well, of what are the most popular activities in the state and in this area. Walking, hiking, running on trails, and multi-pass is forever #1. It's the most accessible and what people might do in their regular everyday thing. And then interestingly, enjoying nature and wildlife is up there too, same as what is in your state and local trends data reports, but really interesting to hear how highly that ranked is what people use most often. Outdoor play and playgrounds is up there, swimming and aquatics, dog walking and off-leash dog play. So number of questions we asked about future needs, and it will be helpful for you to kind of dig into this report when we have it of all the details of this. But some of the top things corresponding to the most popular activities, what they do now, they're looking to prioritize improvements to trails for walking, biking and rolling, natural areas and conserved open space. Top priorities and a number of questions. Programs. Besides popular music events, swimming and aquatics program offered by NCPRD currently, people are also looking for more programs to provide skill building, such as food growing and arts and crafts. That's been increasingly an interest we're seeing throughout all of our park system planning and the programs they're looking for. So a wider variety of program dates and times is a change that would encourage program participation, is what we saw from both the barriers questions as well as when we asked people about their interests in programs. Some other things about the future, looking at facilities, the top things of what people said they want to see offered is trails for walking, biking and rolling, 60%. Natural areas and conserved open space, 55%. Spray, water play and splash pads, 29%. Ways to access the river is up there, such as beach launches or boat launches, beaches, etc. And indoor outdoor swimming and aquatics. So the top interests there. And then programs to offer in the future. This kind of aligns with the one I shared earlier of interest, and we asked sort of things that what do you not provide now that they would be interested in the future. So and what are some of the things that you might expand on what you do. And these were the ones that stood out on top: music events, food growing, preparation for preservation, outdoor education and nature exploration, swimming and aquatics, and arts and crafts and cultural events. And classes and events that bring cultures together. These will be helpful to as we think about what Tim and Desiree are presenting next, but we did ask some questions about funding and spending and their interest there. The highest priorities for investment of what they said was increasing resources devoted to maintenance. That's despite the fact that many people said the condition is good for most places, but I think that maintaining what you have is of high interest for many of your residents. But so is, almost equally so, completing undeveloped parks, renovating existing parks and facilities, increasing the amount of smaller neighborhood parks. So it didn't seem like it was so much an interest on like the big park projects or new, really massive facilities, but rather taking a look at what you have now for resources and reinvesting in them and completing what you have to date. And I think this one about smaller neighborhood parks fits into that walking gaps assessment of those can help fill some of those needs. Providing places for people of all ages and abilities to play stands out as the most important thing for residents. Providing opportunities to spend time outdoors and connect with nature was really significant. And having toured a lot of your properties, I can see the opportunity. There's so much potential to just continue to expand on that and create more opportunities for people to connect to nature, more programs and ways to get people out to many of the sites that they may not even be aware of what's out there for time in nature. So that was really interesting to see in all of this when you have so many other types of recreation offerings. So this is the kind of drum roll one that I wanted to share. What's exciting in all of this is this piece about the funding. We asked a question that had a lot of detail to it for people to understand your funding limitations and your setup right now and what's happened in the past with funding. It gave some context for this, and we asked them how much they would support additional funding to be dedicated to this. Would they support another issue that would increase the funding for voter approval? And 76% expressed they're very likely or somewhat likely to support additional funding. Very few, it's like a small percentage point, said that they were unlikely or very unlikely. This to me is a key indicator. Anything above 70% of your population saying this is usually when I say you should take this before the voters, because this, in a survey like this, in every community we've had this where it comes back at this higher rate, you have some work to do to convince more people and to really make sure you get this across the finish line for people going out to vote for it. But it is a good indication that you could make a case for it. The right type of funding questions and the right type of package of what they would be funding is really key to it, but it's a very good indication. Okay, just a couple other things about engagement. I mentioned the youth engagement. These were some of the exhibit boards that were brought out of different ideas about active recreation programs, parks, and facilities with images so that if you didn't read, you could still participate and give your input. And the survey results were that younger and older residents split their preferences for some future priorities. The younger two cohorts, those that were 18 to 34 and aged 35 to 44, were significantly more supportive of future investments in play equipment for toddlers and spray water splash pads than respondents that were over 55. Older respondents prioritized displays of art, history and culture, and restroom facilities, significantly higher than younger. So this will be another important point of that input to make sure that we're hearing from all of your community and residents of what their interests are. So that was used robustly throughout many different of the pop-up events and engagements with youth that are in your programs. So a really helpful indicator of what their interests are for the future.
But you just said 18 to 45 or whatever.
Oh, that's
So
from the
they're not
survey. It was, yeah, it was representative of that. Those were used in any event, and we had both, we didn't limit the ages that responded, but that's indicating more.
Is that for multiple events, I'm assuming, or is it just?
These are, yeah, this is a
Yeah.
photograph
There
just
wasn't
now.
one spot.
These ones were actually taken shortly after the Oak Grove Community Festival,
cool.
because we were mobbed with people who wanted to vote DOT at that event.
All right, well, I'm going to turn it over to Tim here to talk about the program analysis, operations, and management findings. Okay.
Well, thank you, Anna, and good evening, everybody. It's pushing 10:30 or so over here on the East Coast, so God's country, as we refer to it out here. Yeah, we wanted to, and Desiree and I are going to tag team on this, and we wanted to run through a little bit on the programming, the highlights of some of the programming analysis that we've done, and also, just kind of where you stack up with the other, with regards to maintenance, and there's a number of metrics that we can just go through, but we use the same comparables, if you will, that Anna has used and has spoken about. And our first step was to really look at what are you currently offering, and this then ties in with the slide that Anna just showed a few minutes ago, with about what people really want to see. And so, there's what we're doing right now, and there's what people would like to see, and that's always the challenge, is kind of making that making that seamless, or being on the same page as to what we're doing versus what people do want. But this slide shows you, the full range of things, and also what we're offering right now. And I'm going to pause right there and turn it over to Desiree and let her kind of walk through some of these slides as well.
Yeah, so like Tim said, we did look over the programs that you guys have been offering, probably roughly around the past year and a half. I just basically grabbed up all the program brochures that you had at the community centers. Excuse me. And try to group them largely by age and also the categories they fall under. And as you can see, the survey that Anna's team has already done shows that, here are the top 5 programs that they would really want to see in the future. And I should note that instructed or guided programs, because you can still go to the aquatic center, and you can also still go outdoor, enjoy the nature, but the ones they're looking for are really instructed, and having someone lead them through what you guys can show them. And so as you can see, the items that are highlighted in blue are the things that you are already kind of matching up against the kind of the top 5, but you can also see that there are 3 categories that fall under the youth, but there's only really 1 that falls under the adult. So you can kind of begin seeing some of the surface gaps that we have right now in our current program versus what the public desire. Excuse me. The next slide, I think we could go on. So, like Tim had, we have mentioned, based on the survey, the gaps that we really notice, one of the very big one is craft. And a really big part of it is that we just don't have the facilities, because, and just the equipment to offer that. When we're talking about craft, we're talking about woodwork, ceramics, some places offer, jewelry, metal shops, things like that. We're talking about things that requires a significant amount of space for it, and also all the equipments, and they tend to be very, very expensive equipment. And then of course you will need an instructor who actually know how to operate and have experience doing a lot of these work, in order to, and some of them may actually even need to be certified to handle certain equipment to provide some of these crafts. And we just don't really have that right now. Another big one is, organize and instructed swimming classes for adults, because I know in the past there used to be both semi-private and also private swimming lessons that are offered. But due to the lack of instructors, that had not really been offered for a little while. Overall, music events, there are some music events, because there are kind of the concert, concert festivals and things like that. But again, when it comes to instructed music classes, they are relatively limited, and especially not any has been offered to the adult. And when it comes to food related classes or kind of the outdoor recreation, we do realize that there is the community gardens that's right behind Milwaukee right now. But, it seems like the residents are looking for more, like, nutrition classes, also cooking classes. Those also seem to be very, very actually popular in the other districts that we're looked into. That's a really, this is a demand that it seems to be growing, kind of this in various places. And outdoor recreation, again, it's just an area where it seems like a lot of people need a lot of hand holding. And when it comes to outdoor recreation, we're talking about, hiking and maybe even rock climbing, things like that. Just kind of start exploring places that they haven't really been to. And that's an area that we really don't have. The only thing I think we may be able to consider as outdoor recreation is horseback riding for kids' summer camp. But at least I didn't see anything else really kind of in the program books that may really fall under that category. And then just overall, the missed opportunities is that we have noticed, especially when we're looking against what others are doing, is, you have a very strong youth program and an extremely strong senior programs. A lot of, activities and programs are offered, especially towards senior support. But that also means there is a gap kind of towards the older kids, the teens, the 13 to probably like 19s-ish, and then the young adults and young family. I would say that's kind of the gap that we have noticed. There were just not a lot of programs that will be, kind of like, mommy and me kind of thing. And so yeah, and then the last one is organized adult sports. We know that there are some leagues out there, but that is being supported by other organizations, local groups, but not so much, coming from NCPRD.
But, Desiree, let's move a little quicker through this part and get to the funding piece. I think there's some thoughts and questions around that, so if you wouldn't mind. We can
Okay.
pace a little bit on the programs.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, just kind of, just sum it up really quickly, it's just in general that, you guys are on the right track, but it's simply because the lack of resources and facilities, you cannot actually offer more. And then the other thing that we kind of noticed that when it comes to the aquatic center is that you guys are very generous with your funding, but the other places are able to kind of capture more when it comes to the fees and the revenues, is that they also have other facilities that are associated with the aquatic center. So it's kind of a gym or indoor trails and things like that. So this way they can package themselves up into like, something that they say, if you purchase a membership, you could get all of these other things for free. So so they have other ways to kind of attract more people to come and use the facilities, or even just to kind of purchase a membership. And I feel like the difference between how much you guys charge between residents and non-residents, that 5% really isn't that big of a difference, because for other districts is that they have a lot more programs. They actually also charge more for their program. So, even though they're charging a slightly less percentage, they kind of mix it up by, charging more to begin with. Okay, okay. And then just kind of looking at your maintenance resources in general. As you can see, we actually extracted all the numbers with all the other districts, only looked at grounds maintenance folks, facilities, and also natural resources, because all the other district might pack a lot of other kind of staff in there. So we made sure that we are comparing apple to apple. And NCPRD is sitting kind of low. What that means is, if your community grow, the number of your residents grow, the staff will not actually be able to kind of service them as well as they are right now. So that's something that you really kind of need to watch out for. If the community grows, need to prepare yourself for that. Okay, next. But just kind of an overall, our impression is that, the parks look really good. I think, and I mentioned earlier is that like people are happy with what they have seen, but I think we want to keep in mind that one of the reason I think the staff can do such a good job is also because the landscapes and the features and the facilities are relatively similar, right? Exactly. And so, if you train for one park, you're trained to do all the other parks. And so with the introduction of the splash pad that's coming in at Concord later, and then more splash pad in other sites, we could begin to look at, just the lack of skills or resources to actually start appearing, kind of moving the group. And, that is something that, and if you actually start introducing other type of landscapes, say meadows or other type of grasses or more complex planting, then I think we will begin to run into that that issue. Aging workforce is a pretty big deal for you guys, with about 40 full-time staff, and about 10% of them are senior staff that are going to be retiring soon. So there are just a number of things that you need to kind of consider, despite the fact that you're doing very well now. Within the next 3-5 years, things, some of these issues may begin to catch up to you.
So in conclusion, next steps are, we're wrapping up, as you can see, the analysis steps. And next up is the board of directors are gonna go through a process of approving the next phase of work potentially for wrapping up completion of a plan that includes recommendations and actions to take and strategies, goals within them, and a plan for action. So that is expected to begin in late September, early October. And then, as you saw, we're anticipating completion with a final plan approved later in the year. So with that, any questions or things to clarify?
So I'm going to mention we're bumping up on time because we want to leave time for the website redesign presentation as well. So I'll go through questions. You know, if you've already asked a question, I'll go to the next person, not repeat. Go ahead, you go first, Grover.
Well, because I have to have my questions delayed, I have to get back to the right place. I want to say that the largest piece I want to speak to is, particularly in the summary, this is the parks, and most of my focus for being on this is parks and rec, I get that. And we do have a good delivery on both of those. And all this discussion about what we don't have and don't have, I don't know that's, in my own personal opinion, what our focus is. I'm speaking for me, I mean, only. I think we need to secure open space while it's still available, and that is for me one of the highest priorities, as opposed to buildings and more courses, and we're not taking into account the same taxpayers also pay for the school system and all of their buildings and programs, and they also pay for. So I think we need to look at what the priorities for us are, and a lot of the stuff that's mentioned there, for me personally, I don't see as a priority for us at this time. So that's a comment, but then on the pages, like on the survey respondents, we talked about how many there were, but you know, it represents, and that group was highly likely to want to spend more money. We're not talking 5% of the population of the district that were surveyed, so the other 95% is where my concern would be, and what are we going to do to have them see the need if we're going to spend more money, and what are their needs? And then that issue around that, if we looked at the responses that came from the targeted group versus the random group, well, that may have targeted the target group, but we have no idea. Did the response come back in any way representative? We asked all these people the question, but only a very small number of them responded. So I couldn't really agree that the label is that it's a whatever the word you use, but that the survey was indicative of that broad group, since such a small number of people responded. And then lastly, I don't know, I was looking for the statistics on what percentage of our population of Clackamas County, because I saw here we're talking about the respondents was very high, 82% of them were white Caucasian. What is the proportion to, and how much penetration did we actually make into the other parts of the population? And I don't know what we can do about that, but that was a concern for me about the data. And then there's all the discussion about dogs off leash, and I still haven't seen anything in our planning, so I just want to put a word in. I don't even have a dog anymore, but I think having dogs off leash is the most common missing that I've heard people say, and it was passed through here. But we're still talking about the entire piece is based on less than 5% of our population, which is good. But it still isn't gonna be what does everybody need, and I don't mean to criticize, but I don't wanna make plans that we need more classes and so on and so forth, given all those unspoken, uninterviewed people. So that wasn't really a question, but I just wanted to address those things.
Okay, well, if it wasn't a question, we'll go to Mayor Beatty.
I guess I was a little, I mean, I feel like the exercise of the system plan is to be forward looking and not to, I mean, the points Grover started with about what he would prioritize are sort of where we are under our current budget, but the point of a system plan is to think about what the universe could be and what people would want and let that inform budgetary, fundraising things. So in that regard, I was a little surprised that the list of top 5 facilities, the slide that had that, was all stuff we have. It was just more of stuff we have. Oh, well, splash pads we don't have, the first one's coming in. Access to the river is sort of like, there's 2 parks, I think, that have access to the river. So it was kind of a funny thing to me to be on there. And I guess I was a little surprised that we didn't see more concrete things like skate parks, dog parks. Splash pads felt like the only sort of concrete facility thing that people were asking for, and I was a little surprised by that. And I just wondered where those, I mean, I guess we'll see it in the full report, where those other things come in on the list.
They do come in on the list, they're just not the top.
Yeah. Okay.
But the trail piece is, of course, something that you could probably see how much more robust it could be.
Yeah.
And we're not just looking at survey responses, we're of course looking at the other parts of the analysis too. Comparing you to other benchmark places of what they offer and also looking at what's over capacity with programming today. All those components. So that's why I suggest we don't take the surveys super literally, like this is exactly what you should be doing. We need to weigh that up with all the technical analysis that's being conducted and other interviews with focus groups and so on.
That's helpful context. Oh, you sorry?
In the list of parks that were used, do we know what people were doing at those parks? Like they were going to Milwaukee Bay Park to do.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
sort of. I mean, we didn't ask for every single location, what exactly do you do there? But we asked the question about where do you go most frequently and what are the activities you're most participating in? So you can somewhat connect that, but we also have with the quality assessment that's going on with the parks. That's where we're seeing more of that we have people going out to all the parks and assessing the quality of what's being offered there and how they're used. And so we'll get some more information from that too, to help augment this understanding.
Okay, and the second question with the funding of the 76% or the 70% who would be in favor of additional funding and some sort of model, did that break down into a bond, a levy? No, okay.
No, you would go through a different process to ask those type of questions to understand what type of funding you might want to best use. But most people aren't familiar with too much of funding structure, that we try not to confuse them with those different types of models, but just simply ask at this stage, do you think the district needs to receive more funding? Would you support that?
Okay.
But that would be there's a lot of next steps if you were to go after additional funding, and that would be one of them, is to understand the funding mechanism that it's best for you all, as well as what residents feel they'd be most in support of. Yes, smart.
Calling on Joel.
And just a quick follow-up to that, actually, I can't remember, was it, that 76%, was that representative of the random sample?
Yes.
Okay, so that was the random sample only.
Yes.
Okay.
Which the other one is much higher too. So
Yeah, no, that's great, okay, perfect.
Good clarification.
Thank you. We are an inquisitive bunch. We could probably ask oodles of questions, but we're running up on time. And so I think to sum up, this is sort of the report back from the survey results. There'll be a more robust distribution of information if we want to dig in and chew on the information on the data. But these are highlights that you're provided, and that the technical analysis will also inform recommendations. Is that
Yes.
a good summary?
The survey group is right now working through that, since we extended out the survey response time frame. They're still working on that. But we'll get a full report for you all that has all the details in it. Will become sort of an appendix to the full plan, but they were diving into it. So we'll give you more of that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate it. So Art.
So just do a 100 sentence pitch about her project, and then we can postpone the full presentation.
Thank you. So to share with the.
I'm sorry, just a quick follow-up before we move on, but do we have is there a date for your all's presentation to the board of directors on this for late September? It seems like we meet last month. Is it on an agenda
So
somewhere?
it actually will be posted tomorrow
Oh,
on the
okay.
Board of Directors agenda for next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Here at the aquatic park.
Perfect.
So thank
Sorry.
you for the question, Joel.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to. Thank you.
No, it's okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So, and then we're going to welcome, Melina DiFrancesco. Help me with the pronunciation. DiFrancesco. And you're going to give an amended presentation about the website redesign.
Yes, so, hi.
Hello.
Thanks for having me. Melina DiFrancesco, I manage marketing and communications for NCPRD. I do have a presentation ready to share with you, but we're going to wait until next time. And so today I really just want to give an update that there has been great progress made on the website. There's different phases. We've currently completed the planning phase. We have a consultant. We've chosen our content management system. So we're moving along. And I'll provide more update on that next time. But I do want to say that there are opportunities for the DAC to participate and provide input in this process. And that primarily looks like user testing. And we're at a phase right now where we really kind of are honing in our navigation. We have a design concept ready to share, and we would love for you all to take a look and provide your input. And I also want to just note that a design concept is not a full design. It's not a page layout. It's really just elements pulled together to give you a sense of the look and feel of the website. And so probably tomorrow we'll shoot you out an email with the 2 user tests and would love your input. And then next month we'll have a deeper dive into where we are in the website and other opportunities for input. Okay. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you. And Robert, do you have a
I have a
question?
very quick question.
Yeah.
On this page here, you said 53% of the traffic from organic.
Yeah, of course. So,
What does that mean?
yeah, of course, organic traffic means anytime somebody searches in a search engine for our name or for a service that we offer, and that's how they're getting to our website. The other one there is direct, meaning that people type in our URL specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. We will look forward to hearing from you in October.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Great. And that brings us to the amended item 4. I'm gonna take some time to put some context around this and then share a resolution proposal that Mark Elliott emailed to me before they went out of town. So just acknowledging that the DAC has received a lot of correspondence and a lot of inquiries about Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3. I wanted to add that this is also related to an intergovernmental agreement or IGA discussion that's been ongoing. My understanding is that our board of directors is also the county commissioners, so they're discussing that with the city of Milwaukee folks. So that right now, Milwaukee Bay Park is a developed park. It has paths and some facilities. I also want to acknowledge that there are areas of our district that are underserved traditionally in the unincorporated areas. There are properties that the Parks District owned that are undeveloped completely. So, you know, it leads me to the question, because this is deeply, deeply felt in all of our district when we see that there's a need that's not being met. So I'm not unsympathetic to folks who are calling for what's going on with Milwaukee Bay Park. I think that's a really natural question, but I also want to speak up for areas of the district, you know, that already have apartments, that already have a lot of urban density and don't have a lot of parks that they have access to. And that's really also highlighted on the packet information from Design Workshop. The number of parks in sub areas 1, 2, 3, and 4, which are unincorporated areas, are 4 and 5. And there are 16 parks in the sub area. I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4 sub area. You know, there's 4 parks, 5 parks. between 15 and 20 acres of park land, if you go by area, right? In Milwaukee, a sub-area 5, there are 16 parks and 93 acres. There's lots of reasons for that in history that we don't have time to delve into. But the fact remains is that there's not a current project improvement list. The system plan is something that's going to remedy that. A capital project list is what sets priorities so that we make sure that parks are developed equitably in our district. I personally wish that money was no object and we could all get the parks that we desire and deserve. But the fact remains that that we do have to think about budgets. So connecting the dots to Mark's correspondence with me, and what I agree with is that I would like to see our district advisory committee really emphasize that the system plan is so important to setting those priorities for our district as a whole. And that the resolution that he'd like to propose is really to make sure that that system plan worked for what's phase 3 and phase 4, not to confuse the two, but for the system plan work that our consultant is working on. We really want to emphasize that that's important because that's a North Star to set this priorities. So I will read the text that Mark suggested, and then I'll ask us as a DAC to discuss that as if it's a motion. Like I'll make the motion on Mark's behalf, and then ask if there's any discussion, and if we'd like to take that up, or if we'd like to amend it, or if you'd like to vote it down. We have a lot of options in front of us as an advisory committee. The NCPRD, so starting to read the proposed motion, I motion that we resolve, we send a resolution to our board of directors. The NCPRD advisory board, that should say committee, recommends to the Board of County Commissioners or Board of Directors that they approve the final 2 phases of the systems plan contract with design workshop as soon as possible in order to allow the consultants to continue their work uninterrupted through the completion of their scope of work. We recommend that the contract value be paid entirely by existing NCPRD funds dedicated to this project, and that the original scope of work be approved as originally submitted. So there's a motion on the floor. Grover?
Okay, for the purpose of, we could go to discussion if the motion is, you've moved to, you've presented that motion, so now you want a first and a second, or you just need a second? Because then we go to discussion, that's where I want to get.
The order is a second and then
So you're
discussion.
moving,
I'm making a motion, yes.
okay, for the purpose of discussion, I'd be happy to second it.
Okay, thank you. Calling on Sheila?
I don't understand when you, in what you've read, you talk about funding, or you talk about.
I'll provide a direct response. Contextually, the funding for the system plan is provided by the whole entire district, all sub areas. The main concern is that there is not an intergovernmental agreement about Milwaukee Bay Park. And my understanding is that the question of would Milwaukee leave our district or would they stay in the district, because that's an unanswered question. It's my interpretation is it's caused folks to put the pause button on things. That includes Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3, that includes the system development plan fund study, which a consultant was working on and has since been paused. So the question of stay or go, then if it causes things to be paused, then we don't have the progress to get to a system plan completion.
So in the wording there, are we asking them to unpause the plan work? And are we asking them to unpause the Milwaukee Bay work?
It would be specific to the system plan to ask that the system plan phase 3 and phase 4 work contract be approved and that work be completed on schedule.
Okay, so we're asking that the pause that was hit. So we're simply asking that the plan work go forward.
That is correct.
And that is the right word for it.
That's
You're
correct.
saying-
No, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Calling on Grover.
So I'd like to clarify that as well, just in the very short, because that, the motion is actually that we, as a body, would be recommending that they approve the continuation of the system plan. That's the short version of that motion, period.
Okay, all right, that's where I got.
However, comma, I do want to have it be clear in this room, what is in 3 and 4 that did cause pause for people back then. And that is, it will then, the system plan will now, if left as is, will now go and do, well, we did all this work to figure out if Milwaukee stays, and it would do all this, and then we do all this work to figure out if Milwaukee leaves. It would have that differential, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that is what the system plan is.
Okay,
Has
so
not
now
been
you-
resolved.
So now you're confusing me.
I'm
It's-
happy to do that.
Okay, so are you telling me that the whole reason for the system plan was to give information for Milwaukee to decide if it's better to stay or go? No, okay.
We can't speak to that part, but we can say it's up to this point, it's been the entire district. There's been nobody left out. Now the next beta, and what are the 2 other phases called with the? somebody
3 and
know?
4.
3 and 4.
Phases
Yeah,
3
that
and
3 and 4 are not names, I'm sorry, those are sections, but they have a particular focus.
Basically, phase 3 is to develop a plan. Phase 4 is to discuss implementation options.
Right, and the plan if it goes forward as it's written, will be a plan if Milwaukee stays and a plan if Milwaukee.
There would be, so Grover, there would just be one capital improvement list. And whether or not Milwaukee stays or goes is somewhat immaterial, because if there is a Milwaukee project in the Milwaukee geography and Milwaukee leaves the district, then we just skip over that project and move forward because they wouldn't be part of the district, if that makes sense. So there's utility in that capital improvement plan either way.
It does, and yet we are looking at, I wasn't done, we are moving forward as to the focus. Because this is the part is not in that resolution or whatever, is that in fact, we're focusing on the results of the system plan will dictate how funding is used in the future.
Yes. Yes.
That's not in the motion, and I would like to make sure that's in the motion. Because it's just, well, we'll go ahead and finish it and then we'll see how it goes. No, for me to vote for that, it has to be that we're recommending to go forward with it. With the idea that the whole reason we did a system plan, if we go back to all the why we're gonna do a system plan, is that we would have clear guidance as to what the needs are in the district. And that would then drive what we do next, and it isn't in there now.
So the next 2 phases of the system plan will include a list of capital improvements that are prioritized. And so.
Throughout the whole district based on the system plan, correct?
Correct. And so then we apply district resources, external funding resources, such as grants and other things, as well as any other mechanisms that there's support for to generate additional funding for those projects. But the point is, it's a prioritized list of projects. And so we start at the top and we take the resources we have and we apply those resources to implement those projects in a sequenced way.
Okay.
So.
Thank you for helping with that information. Ally, I'm not sure if your hand was up before Mayor Beatty's. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, my comment was more so about the first part of your statement. It's not so much about this motion. I just have issue with the way that it was explained, how Milwaukee Bay Park is considered a developed park and that there are other areas that need to be prioritized. I do agree that we need to prioritize areas that are undeveloped because I think that that is an equitable issue. But my concern is coming from the actions that we as a district are taking don't match those statements. So for example, if we're really concerned about parks being equitable throughout areas that are undeveloped or don't have parks, then why are we ever even talking or entertaining the idea of selling property that we own that's undeveloped in an area that doesn't have a lot of parks? Why are we spending time and resources looking at Jennings Lodge when we are in the process of building Concord that is less than a mile away, when we could be using funding or using our time in accordingly putting it in other areas in other 12 undeveloped parks and throughout our district that don't have walkable parks? And when we were discussing Milwaukee Bay Park, the way that the whole process came about was because Milwaukee has acquired proper funding, that hundreds of millions of dollars with grant funding, and was planning alongside NCPRD with trying to build a park in a way that is responsible, logical, and would be a regional asset, which was voted on as a regional asset before we even started the Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 1 or 2. And there is funding that was set aside, promised to us to build the Milwaukee Bay Park. So while I totally agree with the statement that we need to prioritize areas that are undeveloped, the statement doesn't match our actions. And that to me is incredibly concerning because that's also misinformation. And that's also like our actions are not aligning with our values. And so to say that Milwaukee Bay Park shouldn't be a priority because we have to prioritize other areas, yet we're not prioritizing other areas, doesn't sit well with me. And so I needed to share that. In regards to the motion and the discussion that we're having here, I don't really have much to add to it just because I don't know, I just feel like needs to be a lot more action behind the words that we're saying and the words that we stand behind in order for me to feel comfortable.
I have a direct response since that was the nature of comments was ones that I made directly. The existing capital project list is dated, my recollection is 2007. There was an equivalent system plan / capital improvement project plan that was never adopted by the board of directors. That was in around 2014. So we're coming up on like 16, 17 years without a capital improvement plan that's been signed off on and adopted by the board of directors. And without such a document from a planning perspective, then we're just kind of building the ship as we're flying it. And when I say we, it's sort of the royal we. That's community, that's the district, that's the board of directors, that's a system plan that we're currently undertaking. My hope would really give guidance to what the priorities are so that we can have some agreement about what they are. I'm not trying to pit my area against another area because that's not helpful.
I agree. And I want to make that very clear that I'm not standing here I'm literally standing, sorry. I am not standing here to try to say that other areas shouldn't be a priority. They absolutely should. I just think that if we want to keep something as a priority, then we should be acting in a manner and making decisions in a manner that show that those things are priorities. And so when we're talking about an email that was just forwarded to us, talking about the sale of a property that we own in an undeveloped area, that doesn't align with also the statement of we want to prioritize areas that are undeveloped. Does that make sense?
Yes, and at the point when the board of directors comes to us ahead of time to talk about purchasing or getting rid of property, then I'll be able to say that the DAC, had feedback, right? Like at the point that the Clackamas school property, was brought to our attention, it was because a sale was being considered, not because the DAC was asked, should this property be sold? So I also want to be clear, what is our role here? And I'm sorry, I know there's a queue of questions, is that we're advisory to the board of directors. And right now, because there is no existing system plan, and there is one that's in the process of being developed, that there's a outstanding contract for phase 1 and phase 2, that a contract would need to be signed for phase 3 and phase 4. What I am hoping to motivate is that we recommend to the board of directors that they sign the contract with Design Workshop and get that system plan work done ASAP. That's what I'm hoping to motivate.
I know I should be like raising my hand, but I promise this will be the last thing. And I just want to say, like, I agree with you. Like, I don't disagree. I guess my hesitancy is around the beginning of the statement when you were connecting the Milwaukee Bay Park and the fee in the letters and the emails we've been receiving, connecting to that and then moving into this part. I just don't see how they're connected or related. And so to say like, yes, we should move on with phase 3 and phase 4, I think is separate than saying, hey, I know we've been getting a lot of things and we've been getting a lot of emails and letters from residents saying they're concerned about Milwaukee Bay Park. At least the way that I received it, maybe it was my interpretation, but what I was hearing was that, yeah, we're getting this feedback from our residents, but because it's considered a developed park and we're not going to consider that a priority. So we're going to consider these other areas a priority and we need the system plan. We need to approve the system plan. So I don't think maybe it was just me, but I didn't really see the connection. And so I just wanted to speak up because that was the part that I had issue with, was like, hey, we know that there's a lot of people talking about it and they want to see it completed, but it is considered undeveloped. So we're not going to put that as a priority. And so maybe that was me, but that was how I heard it.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the next question. And we're still running up on time. We need to conclude this in the next 3 minutes.
Okay, I support the language that you read for the resolution. I wasn't sure when you started talking whether I was going to support it, but I definitely support it. I think going forward on the system plan absolutely needs to happen. I think it's really a separate issue from Milwaukee Bay Park. I think it's a separate funding pool generally. I mean, the Milwaukee Bay Park funding was only a very small piece of NCPRD general fund. It was funded in other ways. So this comes out of the general fund. Milwaukee ratepayers are still paying the rates here. I think it needs to go forward. So I am supportive of, and I do share some of the concerns Ally had. And I was going to ask a question about why we're looking at New Urban High School. Why aren't we looking at further east? Because it is further east that we have the biggest deficit. But that's like a separate conversation to me. I think for the purposes of the resolution, I support it.
Thank you. I believe you're next, Joel.
Well, hopefully a quick statement. I feel like the resolution itself is getting a little lost in this discussion. And I guess my understanding is about the spirit of this is to get a resolution from the DAC to the board of directors before Wednesday of next week to show that we support them approving phase 3 and 4. I don't know if that motion has an official amendment from Grover from his initial presentation, but if there is an amendment, I'd like to hear it reread with the amendment the way he wants it. But I'm getting lost with everyone's interpretation of the introduction of this amendment or this resolution, and the resolution itself is what I feel like we need to kind of get a little more focused on right now.
Thank you. Noted. Missouri?
My question could be lost in the ether also of, is it appropriate to add a time box, or was that already done to add a time box to allow the resolution between NCPRD and Milwaukee to come to a settle? Or is it appropriate to put a time box around this and say, once? No? Honest question, no? No? Okay.
So my recommendation as a staff person is to continue the work of design workshop uninterrupted.
Yes.
To complete phase 3 and 4 of the system plan. So that this district has guidance about prioritized capital improvements. So that would be my staff recommendation, is not to delay. And I think that's what the recommendation is, or the motion is, that Mark sent to Jeanette, to Chair DeCastro, for you all to consider. So, does that answer
It
your
does, thank you.
question?
Yep.
I'm going right on what, thank you for just saying that, because it says, I don't need an amendment in that. The whole idea of a system plan was to give us the guidance. That's it. We can go back to what approved the system plan in the first place and all the advertisement for it. It is for that purpose. So we don't need to reiterate it as long as it's clear and it's in the minutes from this meeting, et cetera, whatever. The part that does tie the two pieces together, and I don't know when I'm gonna get this in this meeting, but you know, I appreciate Milwaukee wants to have this campaign and have all these people sending pretty pointed letters like they're innocent, they have nothing to do, and it's all these evil people over here that are stopping all this, as opposed to listening to the response that actually says, excuse me, Milwaukee, you have not done what you've agreed to do, which was update the intergovernmental agreement to be able to protect assets, et cetera. And that's how those two things tie together. Because if it starts saying, well, that's a separate thing and the money will just go through, that's one thing. And that's not, the system plan is one part of it. But the question and why it was put on pause had a lot to do with whether Milwaukee was going to continue pursuing what is their path to leave free and clear if they wanted to. And they are currently appealing a court decision that said they have to do what I have to do in the school district I'm in. I have, the entire district would have to vote to let Jennings Lodge out of the Oregon City School District. Milwaukee doesn't want to have that. So they want to just decide to that, and I'm done.
Okay.
The point of it is.
Thank
Can
you
we,
for the comment, yes.
sorry,
Sounds-
I feel like we're losing, can we?
Are you
is there
calling the
discussion on the
question?
Resolution, yeah, I mean.
Are you
this-
calling the question?
Unless anyone,
If so, then we would go forward with the vote.
please, yes, call a question.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of the motion on the floor to send a
Would you read it
resolution?
one more time?
Yes, please. This would be from the DAC to our board of directors. The NCPRD Advisory Committee recommends to the board of directors that they approve the final 2 phases of the systems plan, excuse me, as soon as possible in order to allow the consultants to continue their work uninterrupted through to the completion of their scope of work. We recommend that the contract value be paid entirely by existing NCPRD funds dedicated to this project, and that the original scope of work be approved as originally submitted.
Thank you.
I'll take a vote. All in favor of the resolution?
All right.
Aye. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 in favor. I believe that is all of us, but are there any abstentions or objections? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you. And Jessica, I will send an email with that language so that you have it. Going back to our agenda. We had 10 minutes for DAC member reports. We are running short on time. I would like to propose we skip them unless anybody has any burning issues.
Well,
Do you want to give us a 30 second update on your outreach?
The number of people who I speak to who live in our district who are disappointed and upset by what Milwaukee is currently doing, claiming total innocence, is a problem. And I want that to be heard here, The county's response has done a great job of clarifying that it isn't Milwaukee only. They were asked to go and speak to the Milwaukee City Council, and yet they choose to send it to us as opposed to dealing with their own city council. And that's the part that is, I keep a lot of people can have a concern about that. It's one-sided. And I don't know what part the representatives from Milwaukee have to do with that happening, but somebody is organizing a campaign. This number of letters doesn't just show up with no impetus. So I'm concerned it is dissolving our unity by having accusations being made and not being balanced. So that's all I wanted to say. And that's me repeating that for residents I've spoken to in our district. Okay.
Noted. Thank you. I'm going to take us into the district monthly report. Director.
Thank you, Chair De Castro. Okay, good evening, everybody. Again, Kia Selle, District Director of NCPRD. Chair De Castro noted at the beginning, but I just want to repeat because Director Savas wanted me to share this, that he was not able to attend tonight because he is visiting an ill family member. So as you all know, he has impeccable attendance at this meeting. As for NCPRD work, earlier this summer, NCPRD launched a Dogs on Leash educational campaign with a cute educational slide at Movies in the Park events. We shared information via social media and have educational information in our printed materials. This month, we'll post a media release that's also positive and educational. We're also planning a contest for dog owners to provide pictures of their leash dogs at NCPRD parks and trails with a pet-related gift basket for the winning entry. And we'll be looking to the system plan to inform future operations and/or capital expenditures on this front. And I want to note, I am a dog owner and I'm going to participate. And so I do hope you all will participate, and I do hope that dog owners in the district feel like it's a really positive educational campaign. Speaking of Milwaukee Bay Park, I want to clarify for Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3, NCPRD staff have updated the website to better inform district residents about the status of the project. This message is consistent with that shared with the Milwaukee Parks and Recreation Board earlier this summer. To date, NCPRD staff have successfully retained all grants for this project, local, state, and federal. For the federal grant, staff are going to prepare a formal request to extend the duration of the grant to fall of 2026. So we're in good shape right now, folks, and staff are continuing to work hard to retain those funds. Construction continues for the Concord property projects for the park playground and renovated community center, as well as a new county library. At the community center, NCPRD staff removed boards above the entry doors and discovered historic windows. The original wooden windows have been carefully, and I'm going to add lovingly restored. It was really hard work. It could have just been kept boarded up, but it wasn't. And I think this is a great example of our intent to restore the original character of the building and maintain the historic integrity of the building. So you can see pictures in our newsletter that went out, I believe, earlier this week, correct, Melina?
It's actually on standby about tomorrow morning.
Oh, tomorrow morning. Thank you. And thank you to the facilities team for their hard work on that restoration. Again, please visit our project website for updated project information and that construction count. Earlier this summer, the Board of County Commissioners shared their interest in purchasing the NCPRD-owned former Clackamas Elementary School for future use as a recovery center, a facility focused on individuals struggling with substance use disorder. Shortly after, on July 25th, the county hosted a public community forum on site with neighboring residents and businesses so that they could share their concerns and questions. And then on July 30th, we all met online. You might remember we had a special DAC meeting with a presentation by the Recovery Center project manager, and a few members of the public provided testimony. The board then put this item on hold to consider a private offer on the property, which the buyer retracted soon thereafter. So where we are today. Yesterday, the Board of County Commissioners publicly stated its intention to purchase the former Clackamas Elementary School property. And for those of you that aren't aware of where that's located, the address is 15301 Southeast 92nd Avenue, to develop, again, the recovery center. The terms of the purchase will be shared publicly when the purchase and sale agreement is approved by the Board of Commissioners, probably towards the end of this month or very early October. As is typical, discussion of these types of terms has been done in executive session, and those discussions are confidential. I want you all to take a look if you're interested in more information about the Recovery Center. On the county's webpage, there's an FAQ there, and I'll just read the site. It's www.clackamas.us/recovery center. Recruitment's underway for the new NCPRD Budget Committee members. The application process closes September 30th. The Budget Committee makes recommendations to the Board of Directors for park-related programs and facilities through the annual budget process. So please talk with Dominic Cortines, our Deputy Director, if you have any questions about the commitment or the process, and visit the NCPRD website to apply. All right, on Saturday, Fiesta Latina is back for a second year at North Clackamas Park. I will be there. I hope to see many of you there. Oh, it's the third year, excuse me. Okay, I think I'm still new, so I think I can claim no ignorance as a newbie. Thank you again to the Recreation and Facilities staff and volunteers for their work on this highly popular event. I hear it's a really cool event. Again, I hope to see you there. Also, the aquatic park where we are here tonight remains closed for the month of September for annual maintenance and deep cleaning. So thank you to facilities and aquatic staff for all of their hard work. It is a tough job to basically unpack this place and clean it and fix it. And there are a lot of repairs going on. So thank you. And speaking of staff, I am very pleased to announce that Erin Riom has been promoted to Planning and Development Director after a competitive external recruitment process. Many of you already know Erin as the System Plan Project Manager. And I'd like to invite Erin to the dais to share more very quickly about the And I will add before Erin begins that we did a competitive external recruitment process. So Erin was not just promoted internally, but she was selected from a pool of other candidates.
Thank you. I feel like I'm blushing. I don't know. I feel like I'm blushing. So thank you so much. I'm so excited about stepping into this new role. And as Kia mentioned, you all know me as the principal planner in charge of the system plan efforts. But I wanted to share a little bit about my background prior to joining NCPRD because some of you may or may not know that. So before I came here, I worked in the private sector for 18 years. Most recently, I was the studio leader and senior project manager for Sarah's Urban Design and Planning Studio. And in that work, I had an opportunity to work on a ton of different project types at a huge range of different scales. So everything from regional transportation and open space planning to real estate strategy planning to downtown and neighborhood planning and also park and campus open space design. So the whole gamut. So I'm looking forward to bringing all of that experience to my work in this new role. I think the one thing that brings all of that experience together and what really gets me jazzed and energized about this work is community placemaking. And part of why I'm so excited about stepping into this role, through the work that we've done so far on the system plan, I see so much opportunity and potential to create places that are really about community gathering and community togetherness. So I'm really excited to do that work with all of you. I think that we can accomplish great things. So thank you.
Thank you, Erin, and congratulations. All right, my last and very quick note is, please be aware that the NCPRD Board of Directors will host a quarterly meeting next Wednesday. That is September 18th here at the Aquatic Park at 6 p.m. Tomorrow, the agenda and materials will be posted online, so please look for them. Thank you.
Thank you. That will bring us to our public comment period. And I will ask if there are any community members who would like to provide comments regarding NCPRD business or items before the DAC. Are there any folks who have a blue card for giving comment? I'm not seeing anybody in the in-person audience. Do we have any folks on Zoom? And with that, I will close the comment, the public comment period. That brings us to future dates. So as Director Selly mentioned, there's a meeting next week on the 18th at 6 p.m. here. If you'd like to submit agenda item submissions for the October DAC meeting, please send them if you're sending by email by September the 18th at 5 p.m. And our next meeting will be on October the 9th. Same location here at the Aquatic Center at 5:30. And with that, I will adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.